Okay.
Camera's rolling. Welcome to another episode of Too Late with Dave, here at a secret location in the middle of Germany with Neal Preston, who has photographed pretty much everyone worth photographing. And we're gonna just pick a few highlights, greatest hits if you like, and see how we go. So Neal, hello.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Again, this is an unusual situation where I know far too much about you and your pictures, but we have to try and keep it clean.
This is true, he does.
Keep it short and interesting. So we should actually talk about the Hendrix shot, which I haven't got on my list, but your first rock photo was of Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, I was 16 and a half years old or something like that, and I knew some promoters who were in charge of the concert series near my home where I grew up in New York City, and they were promoting a Jimi Hendrix show in Boston at Boston Garden in 1968, November 1968. So flew up there and shot Jimi Hendrix. I'd never seen him before, and the negatives had been lost for years and years and years, never to be found, but I had sent a print to a Japanese picture agent who used to sell my stuff in Japan, and he sold his agency to a bigger company, and it returned a big box of photographs to me, and in there was the one print of Jimi Hendrix from Boston. It's the only print that I have. I don't have any negatives or anything, but may not be the greatest photo in the world, but it's Jimi, 1968, and...
Do you remember shooting it? Did you know what you were doing with a camera?
I kind of knew what I was doing, but the funny thing is, I wasn't sure where I was going to be allowed to stand. So I was told to go see this guy, Jerry Stickles, who was Jimmy's tour manager, and he was a very gruff kind of guy and a big handlebar mustache and, you know, very kind of beer guzzling Brit. And I was told to ask him where to stand. And I go up to him, I say, "Mr. Stickles, my name is Neal, and I'm here to shoot Jimmy." And the first thing he says to me is, "I've been known to fucking punch photographers in the fucking mouth." That was his hello. For years, I was scared to death of him, that I'd ever run into him. 10 years later, I get hired to shoot Queen, and I'm told, fly to Boston, meet up with this guy, Jerry Stickles. He's Queen's tour manager. And the whole flight, I was petrified. Turned out to be the nicest guy in the world. But what I remember from the show is not so much Jimmy, but there was this absolutely gorgeous groupie during sound check, dressed in like purple velvet, and I'd never seen a girl that looked anything like that. And it turned out it was some famous groupie that Jimmy used to hang out with. That's my best memory of the show.
And then, so yeah, jumping forward then, you're shooting Queen, you're their official photographer. Mm-hmm. We've produced a marvelous book. What was that like? What was it like just being, was that the first band you were, and actually no, you weren't first embedded with them, but you know, you were kind of used to being...
Well, at that point, that was, I started with Queen, and I had shot Queen before I was hired by them, but I started with Queen in 1977. At that point, I'd already worked for Led Zeppelin. I had been on the road with the Allman Brothers. The Allman Brothers were the first big band I had been on the road with for about a week and a half for Rolling Stone. But I started with Queen in 77, and I immediately bonded with Brian, who was a photography expert, and we just bonded incredibly well, and they accepted me with open arms, as did the crew, which was even more important than bonding with the band. And I did a lot of work with Queen over the years, 77, 78, 1980, 81 we went to South America, 82 they played some shows, and then of course the famous Live Aid show, and then after Live Aid, 1986, which is when I shot what has become the very, very famous photograph of Fred on stage with all of the crowd of Wembley in the background, the black and
Now,
white shot.
wasn't that like the third or fourth frame?
Yeah, that was the fourth frame I shot that day. I mean, I shot some stuff backstage, but who knew? And as I like to say, any photographer that thinks that they've shot an iconic photo, the second they've shot it, they don't know what they're talking about. You have to have the gift of time and space, and then you'll find out if it's iconic or not. And it just became this very, 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 very famous photograph. And they used it on a DVD cover of one of the Queen Live concert releases. And
isn't it the Freddie Mercury Trust logo now or something?
Yeah. Well, there's one in the National Portrait Gallery in London, and it's instantaneously recognizable. I mean, it is probably the one of two or three of my most famous photos.
Would you count it as one of your favorites?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I love it, but as far as my favorites, people say it's like, who's your favorite child? But I have other photos of Queen that I love even more, that a lot of people haven't seen. But it's become a signature piece, as you will.
Yeah. So yeah, random selection of pictures here from your extensive archive. Ray Charles, who was that for People magazine?
Yeah, Ray Charles. That was a photo shoot for People magazine, and when you shoot for a magazine like People magazine, which is not they still publish. They're not a music magazine. They're not a celebrity magazine per se, but whoever's in the news and is well known or is doing something special, we used to do articles on. So they sent me to shoot Ray Charles, and I go to his studio somewhere in LA, and I do the requisite portraits of him at the piano, and it's Ray Charles, instantaneously recognizable. And I see he has this chess set. Now, I can play chess. I'm not a grandmaster, I'm not a master, but I can play chess. And Ray had this chess set where the tops of the pieces are very simplified. So I asked him if we could play a game of chess and I could photograph him. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm playing a blind guy. I'm gonna beat him. I'm gonna beat him in 3 moves or something. And I start shooting, and Ray's behind the chess set, and he would, I'm closing my eyes to make believe I'm blind, but he would feel the tops of the pieces, and then he'd make a move, and then I'd make a move, and then he'd take another 2 or 3 minutes and he would remember. It was amazing because he would remember the last move he made, and he'd figure out the move I made by feeling where the pieces were, and this was astounding to me. I'd take a few pictures here and there, and then now I want to checkmate him. He beat me in 7 moves. He knew he couldn't wait to beat me. He wanted to play me because he knew he was going to beat me, and he did. And I'm not proud of it, but God bless him.
And did they use the picture in the magazine?
They did. Yeah, the picture was used, and it's the only time I've ever photographed anyone sightless playing chess or almost anything else. So.
We're going to move on to Stevie Nicks, who you've worked with extensively.
Stevie, who's become a very close friend over the years. I had been doing some concert work for Fleetwood Mac here and there. Stevie then had done her first solo record called Belladonna, and did a bunch of press leading up to the release of the record. I got sent by People magazine to her home to do a big story about her, and obviously at that point she was very famous, as was the band. Nothing like she is now, but she lived on the beach in Venice, California, in a building. It was a 6-story building. She had the top floor, was right on the sand. I go over there, and she was so gracious. and wonderful and kind, and we did all the requisite photographs for People magazine that you have to have, with her friends or practicing on the piano, doing her makeup in a mirror. But we didn't have what's called the lead shot, which is the big opener shot for a magazine. And it was really windy outside, and it was late in the afternoon, and I said, let's try and do a shot up on the roof as the sun's going down, even though it was in black and white, and you don't get the warmth of the color of the sunset. It's still a vibe. And she changed into this white dress with these long sleeves that would catch the wind and almost make her look like a bird. It was really fantastic. So I must have shot 3 or 4 rolls up there. It was very windy. Shots were incredible. On the shot that was ultimately used in the magazine, you don't see her feet because it was so windy that I had my assistant laying down flat on his stomach, face down, holding her ankle in case a really big gust of wind came and would have blown her over the side of the building, and she could have been killed. So that he was kind of my safety, so to speak, but became the first of many shoots that we did, and we kind of fell in love with each other photographically. And she's the closest thing I've ever had to an actual muse. And from that time on, I'd go to her house and we'd shoot, we'd come up with ideas, we'd shoot all day, all night, we'd fall asleep on the couches, we'd wake up and shoot some more, and she became a very close friend. She's also, a lot of people don't know this, she's the best picture editor.
Second.
Nope, she's the best. She's the best. You can give her some proof sheets and she will pick out the absolute best shots with the crop lines and everything. She might take a month to do it though, that's being the problem. But I've always told her, to this day, I said, you know what, if the rock and roll thing doesn't work out for you, you could either I could get you a job being a picture editor for Time Life, or you could be a stand-up comic. She's funnier than hell. So, but she's a dear, dear friend, and I love her to death.
And I think the picture is one of the, it's one of those rare examples where a picture really sums up the vibe of a person. If you don't know them,
yeah.
You imagine that's what she's like, floating around.
Well, she's no stranger to the camera.
Yeah.
And, my friend Herbie Worthington used to shoot her a lot. He did the famous Rumors cover. And it's funny because when he passed away, Stevie called me and said, I wanted you to hear this from me first. Herbie's gone. It was not a good day, but she's very photo savvy, very particular, but she knows a great photo when she sees it. But she is the best editor that I've ever worked with.
And so she's generally cooperative when you're...
Oh yeah. Basically, I'll have an idea, and then she'll either sign off on it or she'll say, well, why don't we try this? And so it's really pretty much more than anybody else I've ever shot. It's a collaborative thing with her.
And in another book we did together, Exhilarated and Exhausted, which is, for a picture book, it's text heavy. One of the longest stories is someone you just shot once, I believe, Sly Stone. So you've had years with Queen, years with Springsteen, but the text for that was short.
I shot 1 or 2 concerts with Sly. But, Sly went through, first of all, Sly Stone was a genius musically. Apparently he started as a DJ in San Francisco. But back in the day, in the early to mid 70s, he was so high that sometimes he wouldn't show up for a show, or maybe he'll show up, maybe he won't. People would wait 2-3 hours, and then he'd come out like he had just woken up and played an incredible set. But I had to shoot him for People magazine. He had released a record. All the records he released once he reappeared from his 3 or 4 year hiatus, we'll call it. Every record was titled like, One More Sly, It's Sly Time Again, Sly's Back, another Sly, you know. So he was living in the carriage house above his manager's garage in Mandeville Canyon, which is a suburb of LA. It's kind of northwest of Beverly Hills, kind of near Pacific Palisades. It's somewhat remote, but very, very, very classy neighborhood. And I would shoot him. I met up with him, and I'd shoot one roll of film, and then he'd disappear. I'd have to get him another day. I think I shot 7 rolls of film in 2 weeks. Now, I could shoot 7 rolls of film in the time it takes to say 7 rolls of film. But the one day in particular, when I wanted to get the quote lead photograph, the big photograph to open the story, I had picked out an area up on Mulholland Drive, which is a very famous street that goes all the way from Hollywood through West Hollywood and Brentwood, Malibu, all the way to the ocean. And I knew the sun was going to be going down around 6:30 or 7 p.m. I got to Sly's house at 12 noon, and I'm sitting there waiting. Guy comes in and says, Sly will be out soon. It's like 12:30, 1:45. About 2 o'clock, guy comes in and says, Sly's on the phone, wants to have a word with you. Gives me the phone. Hello? Hey man, it's Sly. Hey Sly. But I'm right next to a door, and I can clearly hear him right on the other side of the door. He's like 5 feet away from me, but there's a door. So it's like, hey, it's Sly, and I can hear, hey, it's Sly, through the door. Anyway, he comes out in army fatigues, and we get in the car, and I start to, it's Sly, my assistant, and myself, and I had a white Mercedes at the time. And I pull out of the driveway, and I start going north up to Mulholland. He says, wait. I just got to do one errand, real quick, just make a U-turn, real quick. 45 minutes later, I'm in the hood. Like La Brea and Jefferson was not a great neighborhood. And we go to some guy's house, it's some ex-Marine, and we walk in, and there is a mountain of cocaine there.
Had you seen a mountain of cocaine before?
I had seen, at that point, well, I saw a volleyball-sized rock of cocaine with Queen in Caracas, Venezuela, but that's a whole nother story. But it was unbelievable. And they're like, but he was smoking crack. And we're driving my Mercedes down the Santa Monica freeway with crack smoke billowing out of the windows. You know, 2 white guys and a black guy in a white Mercedes with smoke coming out. His LAPD was not going to be too happy about that. But so we go to this Marine's house, and Sly's ready to shoot, and we shoot some pictures. He's got this big knife, and he's making believe he's cutting his throat and his wrists and everything. And then we finally get up to Mulholland Drive, and I shoot the picture of him jumping in the air. And my best friend Cameron happened to be driving on Mulholland to see a girlfriend of his or something out in Santa Monica. And he saw my car, and he knew that I was shooting Sly. So he pulls over, and Cameron's a huge R&B fan, knows everything about every R&B artist. And he wanted to meet Sly, and he sees my car, and he pulls over, and the look on Sly's face, he was terrified. He thought Cameron was going to be a cop, and he was going to be arrested, but they shake hands and everything, and then Cameron leaves, and we get the shot. And the next day, I find a little piece of paper in the back seat, and it's a bail receipt. Sly had just been in jail and had gotten out right before the shoot. And the last part of the story is, the story came out, Sly, as a thank you, invited the writer of the story, his wife, myself, my girlfriend at the time, to this very fancy Italian restaurant for dinner. And we get there at 7:30, Sly's not there. 8:30, Sly's not there. By 9 o'clock, we're starving, and we order. All of a sudden, Sly comes in, 1 minute of small talk, he calls the waitress over, he orders 3 triple white Russians, which would be 9 shots of vodka and 9 shots of, whatever else is in a white Russian, I can't remember, the chocolatey stuff. And Another minute of small talk. She brings the drinks over. Boom, boom, boom. He clears them out in 30 seconds. Another minute of small talk. He excuses himself. Says he's got to go to the restroom. Out the door, never comes back. Sticks us with the bill. And that was the last time I saw Sly until a couple of years later when he appeared in a video for a friend of his, Jesse Jackson or Jesse James or Jesse something or other. And I saw Sly. And the year before, because I had been the last person to photograph Sly, Warner Brothers had to use one of my photos for the album cover. It was black and white and they hand tinted it. And I go up to Sly and I say, "Hi Sly, you don't remember me, but my name's Neal and I did your last album cover." And he looked at me, he says, "Well, you ain't gonna do my next one." Go figure. So, but that's the Sly story.
Now, I should leave this next picture to last because you won't shut up about them. But your favourite band?
The Who.
Yeah, there you go.
And my second favourite's The Who, and my third is, of course, The Who.
The Who. And so you shot them tons,
Yeah.
but there's this one particular shot where you were almost killed.
Yeah.
There's a lot of almost dying in your
Well, you never know.
photographic career.
I mean, the thing is, when I'm shooting, well, any photographer who knows what they're doing, they're shooting, you're kind of focused, on, no pun intended, on what you're doing. And The Who played Winterland in San Francisco, and it was an incredible show. I mean, it was the show of shows. It was one of the two best shows I've ever seen in my life. And I'm in the zone, and the show's amazing, and Roger, would swing the microphone, and I noticed that the microphone's, as he's swinging it, is getting closer and closer to my head. But I don't care. I'm getting the photos of a lifetime. And in fact, one of the photos that I shot from the front of the stage was used for The Who's 25 Years Maximum R&B cover. Anyway, go back to I'm in the pit, and the microphone's coming really close to, that close to my head. And I know that, a 5-pound mic on a 15-foot cord swung at this speed could kill me. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, some big roadie bear hugs me, literally lifts me up, pulls me off to the side of the stage, without my camera. I mean, I have one camera in my hand. He picks me up, moves me over, goes and gets my camera bag, just throws my stuff in the camera bag, gives me the bag, and I have no idea why they did that. And then my friend Mary Beth, who worked for Pete Rudge, who was managing the Stones at the time, says, "Roger's stage monitors are cutting out, and he thinks that it's your fault that you're stepping on some cables," which I wasn't. In fact, I'm very careful not to. But
so he's trying to knock you out.
He was trying to get my attention. But had he not, had the roadie saved my life, really, I think, because had he not come out, Roger probably would have tried to hit me, maybe not in the head, but he could swing that thing pretty quickly. And in Winterland, they had a balcony up in the back of the stage. So, and I'm getting the best pictures of my life, but I'm devastated because I want to keep shooting. So I managed to go up the stairs in the back balcony and sneak down to the front of the balcony to do what's called a reverse shot when you're shooting kind of from the stage looking out. That's called a reverse shot. And I got this great shot of Pete and Roger. Pete's in the air and Roger's moving. It just says it all. And years later, Cameron and I went to see The Who at Caesar's Palace, and I made 2 prints of that shot for Pete to sign. And I gave Pete signed one for Cameron and one for me, and he's signing his name on his ass. He's wearing white pants. And while he's signing, he says, "That's quite a fine ass, isn't it?" And I said to him, "Well, it's not as fine as Prince's ass was." And he made believe he didn't hear me. I knew he heard me. He didn't say a thing. He gave me the photo. But, mind you, he could sing the phone book and I'd be enthralled. So
The Who, for years. How did you become Led Zeppelin? So you were the only photographer to be hired to shoot the band on tour. How did that come about?
Well, when I started out in high school, when I was in New York, I met a writer for a magazine called Hullabaloo, which became Circus Magazine, and his name was Danny Goldberg. Danny was living in New York at the time and moved out to LA and became a PR agent. And he worked for he worked for Salters and Roskin. Lee Salters had been Frank Sinatra's PR guy. Lee's son Larry became the Eagles' PR guy. Anyway, Danny worked for that company, and they were representing Led Zeppelin, and me and my partner Andy Kent had a retainer deal with Atlantic Records at the time. So anytime Atlantic had, they needed gold record shots with Ahmet Ertegun or Bob Greenberg, and we had to shoot all the Atlantic acts as they passed through town, or if they were close to LA, or wherever. So when the band started the label Swan Song, I had shot Zeppelin here and there for myself at a few shows in 73 and 1970, but we had the big, they had a launch party in LA and a launch party in New York, and I shot the one in LA, and that was in 74. And I pulled Danny aside and I said, I know you guys are going out on the road in 75, and if you're looking for a photographer to go on the road with you, I'd love to throw my hat in the ring. It's kind of just an aside conversation that we had. 2 months later, phone rings, it's Danny Goldberg. You still want to go on the road with Led Zeppelin? Yeah, I think I do. And about 3 weeks later, I'm on a plane. They sent me to Chicago, which was where the first gig was going to be. And I get off the plane at O'Hare Airport in Chicago, and I hear my name called on the PA. Mr. Preston, please call the operator. The band was in Minneapolis. They sent me to the wrong city. So I had to get my luggage and then go back on the plane and fly from Chicago to Minneapolis, which was a short flight. And I got off the plane, it was snowing, and someone picked me up at the airport, and I just walked in, and the band's on stage rehearsing, and I hadn't even met them. And Danny's like, get on the stage, start shooting. And I have this great picture that I love where they're rehearsing, but Jimmy's kind of stopped playing, he's looking at me, kind of giving me this up and down, so this is the guy we've hired, huh? And that's how I started with Zeppelin, and did 1975 USA, 1977, Nebworth in 79, and then I kept working for Jimmy through The Firm and Outrider and Coverdale Page. So there was a long history, and
but was your brief to mainly shoot the shows?
Oh, my brief was to be whatever they needed, I would shoot. And I got to say that the grand poobah, so to speak, was Peter. And Peter, even though it was Jimmy's band, I didn't know this at the time that Jimmy had ultimately the final say, but as far as I was concerned, Peter had the final say. And Peter just trusted me. There was just something about me or whatever.
So there's not many pictures of Led Zeppelin backstage or off stage generally, but one of the greatest rock and roll pictures I think of all time is you backstage with Jimmy and his tipple.
Yeah, I remember like it was yesterday. First of all, when you look at some of my pictures of Led Zeppelin backstage and you could see the catering setup, it was like some Blue Nun wine in a bucket, some Cokes, some 7-Up, some waters.
Tea.
Some tea, yeah. And a coffee machine that looked like it came from an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting in 1932. And that was it. Because we would show up at the gig about a half an hour before showtime, and they'd get ready with no sound check or anything. And then they'd go on stage. After the regular set was over, they would do the encores, and most of the touring party would get into the limos, so that when the band was finished, we'd call what we do a runner. The band gets in the limos, the loading dock door opens up and all the limos scoot out, and like my friend Daniel Marcus used to say, the audience is still clapping for encores and we're already on the plane ordering lobster, you know. But I remember sitting at this table and Jimmy's to my left and I'm talking to some groupie or some girl on my right, but I would always have a camera always loaded with me with some black and white film in it with a 24. I would always have a 24 on there just to make sure I could get whatever I needed. And I kind of saw, I was talking to someone else, where I kind of noticed this bottle kind of going up in the air. And I turned around and Jimmy's got the bottle almost vertically up, guzzling this Jack Daniels. And I shot one frame and forgot about it. And I probably didn't even print it for years afterwards, because it wasn't the kind of photo that, you know, they had decided to do more press. They were notoriously unfriendly towards the press, but Cameron was on the road with us and he got them to do the Rolling Stone cover, and so it was kind of a happy accident, but it became the kind of poster child photo of 1970s rock and roll excess. And it was literally one frame.
And you'd think it would be an ideal picture for Jack Daniels to use to promote their product.
Yeah. Well, I wanted Jack Daniels, if nothing else, to have a big print in their offices. You know, we approached them and they said, oh, no, we can't use that. I said, and they wanted pictures of rock stars with Jack Daniels. Well, you're not going to get a better one than this one. And we were told that as nice as the picture is, we cannot use it because he's not drinking responsibly in the photograph.
Always use a tumbler.
Yeah, exactly. And P.S., a lot of people have asked me over the years about, there wasn't really Jack Daniels in the bottle. It had to be apple juice or something. Well, then you don't know anything about Led Zeppelin if that's what you think. Later on, years later, Jack Daniels begging me for that photo for some documentary they were doing.
And now we have another Led Zeppelin picture with another drink featured in it. Kezar Stadium.
Yeah, Robert. So in 1973, the band played a daylight show at Kezar Stadium in San Francisco. It was packed. And they had, there were two cages, one in back of Jonesy's rig, and one in back of Jimmy's rig, that had each one had 6 white doves in the cages. I think they were pigeons, but we'll call them doves. And the idea was at the end of Stairway to Heaven, they would release the doves into the crowd as an homage to hippies, San Francisco, Summer of Love, the whole thing. And song ends and she's buying a Stairway to Heaven, the crowd goes crazy, the roadies, you know, raise the doors of the cages, the birds fly out, except one bird does kind of a slow burn right over the crowd, and then comes back to stage, and Robert just sticks his hand out, bird lands on his hand. And Robert's got a Newcastle brown ale in the other hand, purely by chance. And, you know, that's what I call a happy accident. Great, because every band now, who should we get to shoot us? Well, let's get Led Zeppelin's guy. And because I wasn't married, didn't have any kids, I was pretty free to travel wherever and whenever I needed to. So I was the kind of guy, like a flight attendant, that, you know, always has a bag kind of partially packed by the front door. And, you know, I remember in 1977, I was on the road, and I used to have my laminate tour passes in one of those old Halliburton those metal ostentatious briefcases. And I remember being on a plane, I opened it up and I had, Led Zeppelin tour pass, a Peter Frampton tour pass, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, maybe the Tubes, a couple of others. Oh, and a Kiss one. And somehow I was sitting next to a guy and my Kiss laminate dropped down the floor. And this guy sitting next to me grabbed it like I wasn't gonna see him steal it, you know. I asked if he could have it. I said no, but I never knew where I was going to have to be. And those years, 76, 7, 8, 9, 80 is a lot of traveling. And as I like to say, it's the deadlines and the stress are one thing, but it's the traveling that's going to kill you. I mean, to this day, it's really tough. Even when you have your own plane, which makes it easier, but in those days, not everyone had their own. Yeah, Led Zeppelin, we had the Starship in 75. We had the Caesar's Chariot, which was owned by Caesar's Palace, as a jet they used to fly the high rollers in from all over the world. We had that in 77. But, people are always asking me or saying, you must have wink, had a lot of fun, wink, with Led Zeppelin. And I always say I had much more fun with REO Speedwagon, which I did.
Finally, oh no, it's not finally. I'm getting ahead of myself. Springsteen, and yet again, another long-term gig for you.
Yeah. I had shot Bruce a few times from Born to Run on, for myself, not for myself, but for maybe a little magazine assignment here or there. And then Wham played China, and Bruce at the same time was playing Japan. So I managed to get, I had the Bruce Springsteen assignment from Rolling Stone, and my English agent got me on the road with Wham. So the idea was I would shoot Wham for a couple of shows, and then I'd move on to Bruce for Rolling Stone in Kyoto. Rolling Stone pulled the assignment at the last minute. I can't remember why. Now I got a problem, because we can't pay just to go over to shoot Wham. And Time Magazine picked up the Bruce assignment, so I spent a couple of gigs with Wham, and then picked up Bruce in Tokyo, and that started a long-term relationship with Bruce. And this is when Born in the USA had exploded. It was huge, and John Lando's office called me and said, "Can you come over to Europe and especially England?" And so we did, I think, Birmingham and Manchester. And then Bruce played Wembley, and Bruce would play these 3.5, 4-hour shows. And when you're on the road with someone for a long period of time, you got to be careful of taking the same kind of picture over and over and over again. You have to kind of look at it with a different set of glasses, so to speak. So Bruce had the stage, the main stage, and then there were these kind of runners that went to these little smaller pod stages, stage left and stage right. And I knew that Bruce would always go to this one area on one of the pod stages during the second half of his show, during, I think it was Dancing in the Dark. So I decided that I was going to mount a camera with a full-frame fisheye lens on the back railing pointing out towards the crowd. But I wanted to get Bruce, I wanted to be able to see Bruce's face. So during the intermission, I go up to him and I say, "Look, so I've got this camera mounted, and for the second half of the show, first half I done one of Clarence, but I wanted the matching one of Bruce. So I said, I've got this camera mounted. If you remember, when you're out there for Dancing in the Dark, at some point could you turn around and play to the back of the house?" And he didn't really say anything. So I kind of start walking out the dressing room, and finally he says, "Yeah, okay," not knowing if he'd really do it or not. So second half of the show starts. This camera's mounted with an A-clamp, and it's not wireless. I had to trigger it with a hardwired trigger, and the trigger's coming down underneath the stage. So I'm underneath, and I can tell when he's up there because there's open slats in the stage, and all of a sudden I see these boots kind of coming, and I know he's up there. I kind of hold my breath and just fire 36 shots. Boom, 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 boom. Wait a second, boom, 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 boom. And I don't know if he's looking here or there or down or up or anything. And of course, in those days, you don't know till you develop the film the next day. Sure enough, the shots are great. And I got exactly what I wanted. A little known fact is, Live Aid was announced shortly thereafter, and the Live Aid show in London took place on Bruce's stage. He donated the stage to Live Aid, probably $1 million stage. So, because the day before Live Aid, we did a photo call with Geldof and Harvey Goldsmith, and I'm under the stage, and I'm thinking, this looks familiar. I know this stage, not realizing I'd been under it like for the 3.5 weeks, 2 weeks before. So, yeah, but Bruce didn't play Live Aid, but his donation was magical.
Nice. So this was going to be the last picture, but the trouble now is I'm thinking of all the shots. But Rat Pack.
The Rat Pack, yeah. Well, look, Sinatra, one of the most famous guys ever. They decided to do this tour in '88 with Frank, Dean, and Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, of course, Frank Sinatra. And I had spent, maybe you don't know this, but I had spent a few days with Sammy a week and a half before the tour started. So Sammy was kind of my guy who smoothed it out with Frank, because Frank ran the show. And they played in the round. So, where the stage is in the middle of the arena, and so they can, these guys could wander around wherever they want to go, and the stage would also move ever so slowly, very, very slowly. Neil Diamond used to use one of those as well. But as a photographer, I want to see their faces, and I'm having a hell of a time. I mean, you're chasing after the photo, and the minute you think you got it, and Dean goes over here and Frank goes over there. So I decided, let the photo come to me. And there was a Los Angeles Times photographer way back here with a lens this long. So I just parked myself next to him and waited for the shot to come to me. And the shot that came to me was the shot of all their backs, and Frank is literally goosing Dean Martin in the ass. Like, get it together, man. Because Dean was a little, not quite all there at the time, bless his heart. But happy accident.
And wasn't this one of their last shows together?
Yeah, I think Dean appeared in one more show, and then he was clearly not all there. And, his son had died in a plane crash in Palm Springs, and apparently he was never the same after that. That had been some years before, but that was when he started his downhill slide. So he was gone. They replaced him with Liza Minnelli.
But this is great because you know exactly who it is.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. And there's a mob-run Italian restaurant where I live in Las Vegas.
Family-owned restaurant, I believe we call them.
Family-owned, yeah. And very long story short, the owner, who is this 95-year-old ex-family member, mobster, owns the restaurant, and I wanted to have that photo. That photo should be in every Italian restaurant in the world. And I gave him a print of it, and it proudly hangs in Piero's restaurant on Convention Center Drive in Las Vegas.
Fantastic. So I know it's everyone's day off, and we're taking up your valuable time, but I want to talk about the Travelling Wilburys and how that came about. And there's two pictures I'm going to flash up, the famous one, and then one where we're waiting for Bob.
Oh, yeah. Well, I get a call one day, like, I don't know, 1 in the afternoon, from Tom Petty's office. My friend Mary Clouser calls me up and says, hey, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. Are you busy today? I said, I'm just home doing whatever. He says, well, Tom Petty, is doing some recording out at Dave Stewart's house in Encino with some of his friends. She didn't really say who the friends were. And she might have mentioned Jeff Lynne, but that's all. And can you get out? They need some pictures done because they're all going to be there at the same time. There's 5 of them. They're not usually all there at the same time. Can you get out there? I said, yeah, let me just call my assistant and make sure he's available. And he was. I called Mary back and I said, okay, I can come out there. And I said, I need the address and directions. And she says, well, hold on, I got Tom on the other line. I'm on hold, and she comes back and says, Tom's gonna call you in a couple minutes. So I hang up, a couple minutes later, the phone rings. Hey Neal, how you doing? It's Tom, blah, blah, blah. I said, hey, I'm ready to come out. How do you get there? He says, well, you go on the 101 freeway, and the exit you take is, let me say that. I think the exit you take is, and he says, talk to George. George who? George Harrison. And I hear this distinctly Liverpudlian accent, and I don't remember anything else. He told me the address, and I thought, oh my God. We get there, and it's the Wilburys. But the first guy I see is George, who I didn't really know. I had met him a couple years before briefly, but he says, hi, how you doing? He takes me into a room, closes the door, and he says, okay, when Bob's ready, then we'll shoot. At this point, I knew that it was going to be Bob and Roy Orbison, everybody. But, I'll give you the sign, the wink or the nod or whatever the signage was going to be. But when Bob's ready is when we're going to shoot. Otherwise, don't shoot. Wait till Bob's ready. Duly noted. 10 minutes later, Tom shows up. Hey, Neal, how you doing? Tom, I knew. Big hug. Takes me in a room. When Bob's ready, we're going to shoot. Don't, just keep your eye on me or George. Bob's ready. We're going to shoot.
But you'd shot Bob before.
Yeah, a little bit here and there, but never friendly in a friendly way. But the point is, they're walking up pins and needles. There's a Beatle. It's Tom Petty,
Roy
Orbison. Jeff Lynne, who had a lot of hits. It's all about Bob. So the first shots we do were, I think they were indoors. You could see the four of them, and Bob's way in the background playing a pinball machine.
Didn't give a shit.
That didn't give a shit at all. I was basically wanted to do a test to make sure the lighting was okay. Then we did the shot, somewhat famous shot of them with 5 different colored, I think, Gretsch guitars. I think they had a endorsement deal or something. And then we went out under this tree and we shot some pictures of the 5 of them, and never expecting that Roy was going to pass away and that these were going to become quintessential Wilbury shots. They were just kind of grab shots so they had something of the 5 of them. And you never know, I meet people now who say that's their favorite record of all time. But it was great. It was the 5 of them, 1 roadie, me, and my assistant. It's the only people Dave Stewart wasn't even there. It was at Dave's house. I guess Dave had a studio in his house. So.
And he's pissed off he wasn't there.
No, but I met Dave years later. We flew out. Stevie was playing Caesar's Palace, and Dave had produced her last solo album. And Dave likes to gamble. Dave likes to play craps and everything. And it's funny. I rarely tell the story, but I had a bet with Stevie about when the record came out, the Walter Egan record, the Stevie and Lindsay sing background on. She said, oh, it came out in 1978 or so, and I said, no, it came out in 77. And we bet $100, and I won. She paid me the $100. I go into the casino, and I was gonna take the $100 bill and put it on one number, and I said, oh, $100. So I changed it for 2 50s. I put it on a number. It hit 35 to 1. I could have had $3,500 from her $100 bill. Instead, I made $1,800. But it was my good luck $100 bill from Stevie Nicks.
Nice. And last question: someone you would like to have shot that you didn't get to shoot? Didn't you shoot the Colonel?
No. I was in.
Sorry,
I got hired. True story. I got hired in the must have been 73-ish, 74-ish, because it wasn't super fat Elvis. It was still fairly cool Elvis. And I was assigned to shoot the Sweet Inspirations, who were his backup band, or backup singers rather. And the girls would do like a 20-minute set, And then there'd be a comedian that would come on and do 10 minutes while they were getting Elvis ready. And if you go to the Westgate now, and if you go backstage, there's a star. There's the original wood. They took a big piece of the original wood with a star on it. That's where Elvis would stand when they put the cape on him and everything. At any rate, so I shoot, so I'm there to shoot the girls. I meet the PR guy in the afternoon, and I said, look, yeah, I'm here to shoot the girls, but I really would love to shoot Elvis. And he says, well, there's only one person that can say yes to that. Takes me to meet the Colonel. Colonel's in the middle of playing craps. Now, I don't know anything about craps, but I know the guy with the dice is called the shooter. So there's the Colonel, the stogie, the hat, the whole thing in total Colonel Parker mode. And the PR guy says, no, do your thing. Colonel Parker, he never looks at me. My name's Neal, I'm here to photograph the girls. I'd love to be able to photograph Elvis, at least part of his set when he comes on. No, shooting, no. I said, Colonel Parker, I really, really would love to shoot Elvis. No, Colonel Parker, when Elvis comes on, can I go to the back of the theater? It wasn't a very big theater. I go to the back of the house and shoot Elvis. No! But he's winning. He's pissed off at me, but he's winning, so he's happy. Colonel Parker, when Elvis comes on, can I take my cameras and put them outside the theater? No! Last ditch effort. Colonel Parker, when Elvis comes on, can I take my cameras, put my bag up in my room, and just come down and watch? He finally looks at me and goes, no! Scared me to death because he had crapped out and lost a bunch of money. So sure enough, I photographed the girls. About a nanosecond after their last song's over, two goons come and escort me up out of the theater, and they lock the door.
Amazing.
So I never got to shoot Elvis. But the other people I always wanted to shoot, and one I did, Courtney Love and Christina Aguilera, go figure. I've photographed Courtney, she's a friend of mine, but I just think Christina Aguilera is one of the most talented people in the world. So she's the only one left.
And final word of photographic wisdom for our listeners and viewers.
Photographic wisdom? If you can't get a decent shot at Jimmy Page, Pete Townsend, or Freddie Mercury on stage, quit your job and become a plumber.
There you go. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. It's a pleasure.